John Phillips, attorney for Joseph Maldonado. I want our brilliant legal team to address what happened, and I will close with some remarks. Molly?
I'm Molly Parmer, part of Joe's team of attorneys. Today we had his federal resentencing, and prior to this, the defense submitted a sentencing memorandum with a series of attachments that showed excessive government involvement in the creation of the offense for which he has been convicted. We alleged that the government's involvement rose to a level that reached outrageous government misconduct, sentencing entrapment, sentencing manipulation, and we put those arguments before the court. The court today, for his resentencing, said that he was not going to, Judge Polk said he was not going to decide today whether or not there was sentencing manipulation and outrageous government conduct when it comes to Joe's offenses. That is for a later hearing. We are going to continue our post-conviction litigation. But we did preview for the court the evidence that we have through our post-conviction investigation. And we made arguments for a reasonable sentence. We asked for 90 months. Joe's original sentence was 264 months. The judge sentenced him to 252, so 12 months less. But again, he did not make a finding as to what we have said in regards to government misconduct, the behavior of the investigating agent in this case, and how ultimately we got here with these convictions. We are going to appeal this sentence, and we are going to also file a motion for new trial soon. And at that time, the court will have to decide whether or not these convictions can stand.
Amy, you want
That's correct.
How many months does he have left on his sentence?
So you would credit what he's already served, so 3 years. So I mean, he's still looking at 18, 19 years. But let's not get lost in that. Certainly, we're disappointed. You know, we recommended 90 months, and even though we recommended 90 months, that wasn't waiving what's coming. You know, these things go trial, sentencing, new trial. And so we had to get through sentencing to get to the point of new trial. And that's where we are. I picked up some of Joe's belongings this week. And I brought his pocket watch. You know, it's time for justice. We've been waiting for this hearing 6 or 7 months. Meanwhile, Joe has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. His CVID is you know, a lethal mix if you mix it with COVID. He's been put in solitary confinement over and over again, and we're going to address what's going on with him related to that. Look, if you followed this case, you know that Alan Glover, who was supposed to be here today but is in the hospital, you know that Alan Glover has admitted to perjury. He's told the FBI he committed perjury. That is significant. James Garretson has turned over cell phones with hundreds of phone calls, which we have turned over to the feds. There's phone calls between him and Bryant, phone calls that show massive government misconduct. John Rinke didn't testify at the first trial. He's got some things that he's added. Jeff Lowe, who's currently in Mexico, has provided about 4 terabytes of data that we've gone through with videos of him high-fiving Brian as they ran roughshod over the rights of Joe and others in the exotic animal industry. So, look, it is not over. Certainly we're disappointed with today, but next week or the week after, we will be filing motions for new trial and proceeding with the appeal at the same time, and going forward with what has always been the heart of this case, which is the collusion by the government and these witnesses to get Joe locked up. Questions? Yes.
What did Joe say about the decision?
He's disappointed, but of course he was prepared for this. We're all fairly new to this case. Joe obviously is not, and so he's been in front of Judge Polk before. You know, he's disappointed. But he sees the plan, right? He sees what's coming and knows now that his lawyer doesn't have to play nice to all of these people while I've been gathering evidence, that things are about to get, very different. It felt so good to turn over phone calls of James Garretson talking to the feds, talking to Eric Good from Tiger King, receiving $5,000. I think he got paid $3,000. Literally the same week, he was negotiating getting paid by Tiger King the same day he testified. And so there's a lot more that's going to come out about how all this went down, how Tiger King affected it, and how Agent Bryant, was messaging with Howard Baskin back in 2015 about getting Joe's zoo infiltrated. There's so much more to this story than anybody's ever seen. Any other questions?
Is he actually divorced yet?
He is not divorced. That's coming.
Where is there a case pending?
I don't think there's been a case pending. So in some of the transfer from Team Tiger to our firm and other firms, certainly Molly's firm, a lot was not done that needs to be done. And so our focus has been preparing on the sentencing and then the multiple hundreds of pages that we're filing related to the motion for a new trial, but the divorce is coming.
When we in the press say what's his real name, he prefers Joseph Maldonado.
Right. Correct. Essentially, he's dropped passage because he's in the process of a divorce.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. That bus just blocked it out. I can provide that to you. It was from the heart. This sentencing was very different than the last sentencing. Even the judge, was fairly mean to Joe. We even filed a motion to disqualify the judge. He was fairly aggressive, and it ended with him wishing Joe well. It was completely different. Joe even put in his book all of the regret he has from keeping animals in cages. He's seen it. He has been locked up in solitary confinement for, what did he say recently?
16 months.
Yeah, 16 of the last 22 months in the BOP custody. Plus there's other time that he's been in there. I challenge anybody to spend time in a room alone. Even in the cold weather climates, they call it cabin fever. If you're stuck because of the snow, he is permanently a caged animal, and with the health issues he has, it's a toxic mix. Anything else? Yes. Molly, anything else?
Hey, John, one more thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what you thought about what Carolyn said.
This is called restraint. So I am actively involved in litigation with Ms. Baskin on behalf of Ann McQueen. So it's probably best that I don't comment. You're not. Why don't you take that one, Molly?
One thing that I did point out to the court today was the inconsistency between her statement that she felt in danger and therefore wanted a longer sentence for Joe versus her statement to the media April 14th of 2021, where she said she would happily agree to a reduction of his sentence or a complete pardon if only he supported the Big Cat Safety Act. So we pointed to that inconsistency, and I think that that says it all.
She's gone on TikTok fairly recently and talked about death threats made to her by others, and has a lot of contradictory, hypocritical statements out there on the record, which is a part of the defamation lawsuit. So it's we hope, like Joe said, when this is over, not if this is over, when this is over, that they all get over it. Joe is dedicated to that. He doesn't want anything to do, other than, John Rinke and some of the people that that have been loyal to him and true friends, he doesn't want anything to do with this anymore. There's no Tiger King 3, the touring edition. This is it. There's no Tiger King 3 at all. And so it's something he's ready to put past him. Anything else?
Is he going back to North Carolina?
That's the question. So they rushed him out of our meeting, and so I anticipate they're going to try to get him back tonight. He just gets better care there. He's got a medical appointment February 6th, I think. And so he is elected. He just told us for the first time, and I can say it because he said it publicly, that he's elected to do radiation therapy. So he's in for a few months of significant radiation therapy for his cancer.
A couple of minutes ago, he's done with Netflix.
That's all over with. That's all over with.
And they seem to didn't pay him a dime.
That is probably also potential other litigation, and so I don't really want to comment on that. I want people to turn some attention to what happened from Tiger King and all of the people who they featured, some rightfully, some questionably, are all, whether civil or criminal or PETA lawsuits, subject of investigation. They took down everybody, and even Netflix, I saw today, because Carol Baskin reposted it, Netflix now has a post on Netflix's page talking about the perils of cub petting. And so that makes me wonder how political all of this was, and what really happened. And the fact that Carol filed a lawsuit before Netflix premiere, like the week before, and then dropped it as soon as the show went off, it was aired. It's all interesting, but this is the world of Tiger King. Everything has been interesting and an adventure. Any other questions? Look, thank you for the continued coverage of this case. We have lots to show. We actually tried to seal the sentencing hearing and the evidence, and the government insisted it being unsealed. And so now that it's unsealed, we're going to provide more of our investigation as it airs. But there's so many questions that still remain unanswered. Although I think we're in a substantially different. I know we're in a substantially different position than we were to show this. When Amy and I met Joe in Fort Worth for the first time, and he walked in, with the mullet and the tattooed eyeliner. We're like, what have we gotten ourselves into, And then Joe pled for his innocence and said, look, I'm an innocent man, which, most of the people in a federal prison and state prison say. And he outlined why and who and what happened. And it even to me sounded a bit of a conspiracy theory. And as we've gotten involved, time after time, Joe was right. And so we took a very skeptic approach as attorneys and investigators. And, the stuff going on with James and Alan Glover, going to the park, there's some insinuation that was untrue. I have video of all of our interviews. But Alan Glover, admitting that he had a murder plot on Joe that was the exact same laying in wait to decapitate their victim that he testified to it at trial is super significant here. They wanted rid of Joe. People wanted rid of Joe by any means necessary, and they won for now.
And the thing is, the fight continues. This is a sentencing. His conviction still stands right now. And the next step is to attack the conviction. And as we've acquired this evidence, we've turned it over to the government. And make no mistake that if you work for DOJ and you're a minister of justice, you have an ethical obligation to examine new evidence and determine if this conviction can stand whatsoever. We have in the past few days given the United States attorneys a trove of recordings, documents, all of this stuff that we've collected during our post-conviction investigation, and now the onus is on them. They have an ethical obligation to go through this and decide what they're going to do as we move forward to try and overturn his conviction. Now that we've had this hearing, we plan to file our motion for new trial as soon as we can.
When will you think we'll have a hearing?
Well, that's a great question because we won this appeal this summer, and it took 6 months for the court to set our sentencing hearing today, and we had to file a motion for a sentencing, which was then granted, and we got this date. So our hope is that once we file our motion for new trial, especially considering the medical fragility of our client, that the court swiftly sets an evidentiary hearing on that motion. But that is, of course, up to the court.
And I'll add this, Alan Glover's in the hospital. Eric Cowie has passed. Who else has passed?
I'm the healthy one.
Yeah, you're the healthy one, right. And you know, Jeff Lowe's now residing in Mexico. And so Brenda Varga has passed. Jeff Johnson committed suicide. So we're losing our witnesses by the delay. And so, you know, as Dr. King said, justice delayed is justice denied. This is, you know, when we got a response from Judge Paulk, and again, this is where I try to be measured, you know, Judge Paulk said that the reason for the 7-month or 8-month delay was because we filed other motions. Well, you know, lawyers are expected to do multiple things at the same time. And, you know, we expect the justice system to be able to process this because the Constitution requires it.
Why is Alan Glover in the hospital?
We don't know. So he was supposed to be here today, and I don't want to violate, you know, his medical rights, but he's undergoing tests to figure out exactly what his issue is. It's not COVID, it's something else.